Before we get to announcements, I just wanted to share, this is kind of sharing and a little bit of a teaching. As many of you know, this past Thursday and Friday, I was in Toledo at our cathedral for our annual clergy retreat with His Grace Bishop Anthony. A lot of stories here, so I'm just doing one thing here. And Bishop Anthony actually returned to an older practice. In recent years, he's had speakers come and speak to us. But his original practice was he would speak to us and teach us. And so that's what he did on Thursday and Friday. And the topic of his presentation for us was confession in parishes and how we approach that in parishes. And so it was grand total 3 sessions, an hour each. So I had 3 hours of intensive learning with the bishop about confession. A lot of it familiar ground, but also a lot of things that were new and kind of brought confession a little more into focus for me and some of the details in there. Probably one of the telling things, we don't always get this, we probably get the sense when we hear the bishop speak and the resources he pulls from. At one point in his talk, he was working with notes from a notepad. But at one point, he pulled out this binder. And he said, "Fathers, I don't have children. I'm not married. I study." And he said, "This is my binder on confession." He says, "I've looked at all the biblical passages. I've looked at all of the writings of the church fathers. I've looked at the practice of the church. And I have notes on all of this. And I'm trying to figure out how to share this with you." So I probably have an eyedropper of the 10-gallon jug of what Bishop Anthony had there. So I have a lot about confession. I'm not going to say it all here. But I'm going to say some obvious things. I think I tend to assume that everybody knows this. And I don't really say it, but it probably bears repeating. That you should come to confession on a regular basis. Confession in our Archdiocese is normative. I know some folks have come from other jurisdictions or jurisdictions where it was not a practice. It is normative, which means everyone should come to confession. And the recommendation is that you come 4 times a year. So if it's been a year or 2 years, or you've never come, now's a good time to start thinking about it. And we usually say that it's the fasting seasons are the times that we come for confession. So mid-November, we'll start our Nativity fast. We'll start preparing for the Feast of Nativity. That is a perfect season to come for confession. Yeah. Kind of the last piece on this. And this is something I don't think I emphasize enough. There is a relationship between receiving communion and confession. And that regular confession, on some degree, is preparation to receive communion. So if you're not coming to confession, I'm not going to police it, but there is a peril there. And the fathers talk about a peril of coming unprepared to receive communion. I think for those of us who do come to confession regularly, we understand that as something that is beautiful and helps our spiritual lives. I know that it can be this thing of overcoming an obstacle of, I have to say out loud things that I keep in the deepest parts of myself to someone else. But the reminder, and for those of you who come to me for confession, you know that when we walk out of the room, I never bring it up ever again. That's part of hearing confessions. I don't share this with anyone. Whatever you bring to confession, it's really, you're giving it to Christ. And I'm just the witness there. And I'll walk out the door. So if you're concerned about that, please don't. So, that is confession. If you have more questions, we can talk about that at coffee hour. We're continuing